And now, ladies and gentlemen, our second session will feature the two Dutch legends. Please first welcome Ronald de Boer. And our second guest for today is Marc Overmars. Delighted to have you both here with us at at Amsterdam Arena. Welcome, Marc, and welcome, Ronald.
Thank you very much.
I will start with you, Marc. Marc, tell me or tell us about your experience in the Ajax Academy and how your current role as director of football works.
No, I was thinking about it because many questions in football today is about how do you get your youth players in the first team. That's a very important question. If you look at the Premier League, how many players from English side play in the first team? It's very difficult to get in because all the big expectations. So we have the same, of course, and maybe a little bit less here in Ajax Amsterdam. We always want to have 5, 6, 7 players, what we developed from the young, in the first team. And that's very difficult, because we also need to win the league every year. Same as Barcelona.
Yes.
Every year, Ajax will have to win the league. It's impossible, but the last 10 years, I think probably six times or something about it. So to get that balance, that you and the young players can be in the first team, and you have to perform well. It's not easy. It gives always sometimes some fights, but I think we're doing well. Everybody knows Ajax as the club in the world with development, young players, develop good players for the next level. But it's also that we know these days Dutch football is more an education for the bigger clubs in Europe. That's what that's where we are now. I think when Ronald left Ajax, he was 26 or 7, 8?
28.
28. I was 24. Now they leave at 21. So it's a big change of football in
7
Holland.
years of experience. That's a big time, big years in a football career.
Yes, Ronald. Not only did you play for Ajax and came through the youth team, you also have strong ties to Qatar from your spells with Al Rayyan and Al Shamal. How important do you think the Aspire Academy is for football development in Qatar?
I think very important, because football in Qatar is very important. The most is the passion. The people love to see football, not only in Qatar, but they're crazy about all the big teams in Europe. And they want to also bring the football into Qatar. And you need a good organization. If you want to start somewhere, you can't start with the roof. You have to start with the foundation. And I think Aspire is the foundation. They want to bring the boys, give them a good education, teach them well with good coaches. And we just spoke about a lot of people here who work with Aspire. We have great doctors. They have great managers. They have everything what is needed nowadays. They have top quality people standing there. And the only thing what I can say is we have to be patient, because you can't start or you can't have success in overnight. It takes years. I think Bielsa said here in 1900. Oh no, sorry, Ivan Bravo said in 1900 Ajax started here his professional football league. That's over 100 years. You can't expect that Qatar does it in less than 20 years. It takes time, so be patient, and then I think at the end, with so much effort, you will succeed.
Marc, how important are international summits such as these for the development of football? International summits like these, like here, for the development of football?
I think we should learn from every country. Because sometimes when I was playing in Barcelona, we also think sometimes the Dutch people know everything better. We are arrogant sometimes.
Most of the time.
Yeah, we're a small country, but sometimes we think we know everything. We know it better than in Spain or in England. But that's of course not true. We always have a look which country is doing well. I think in Australia, the development, how they work over there, in physically, mentally, what they do. I think the Dutch Federation, they had a travel to Australia and were very enthusiastic, just about all the information we had from Australia. And Australia was in football 10 years ago. Yeah, was quite small, to be honest. But you see, the development of all country, we have to be prepared and watch what is the good for us and what can we learn from the other people.
Ronald, what was the secret of the success behind the golden generation of players you both graduated from, you and Marc?
That's always difficult. The first of all is, I think, that you have a group of players who are exceptional good. Then you had, I think, we were lucky that we have a manager like Louis van Gaal, who could work with those young boys. Only we had Rijkaard and Danny Blind as an experienced players, but all over it was a very young team. And I think just the combination that the boys were hungry. They were listening to him. We observed everything what he told us, and you need a bit of luck. I think you need sometimes just the right players at the right moment, and they are complementary to each other. I always say, like, if you have a right winger who's very fast, and you can send him away and put him in his strength because he's so quick. So you have somebody behind him who feeds him a lot, and that's why he's getting the best out of him. That worked. But if you have somebody, a midfielder, who is more like individual and is going himself more forward, the right winger doesn't come in his usual strength. And I think at that time we had on every position, everybody was complementary to each other. We had strength, we had technical skills, we had speed, we had finishers, we had from the back players who can really play from the back, like the modern football what Barcelona wants to play, Bayern Munich, City now, and Ajax. Always the ball over the ground, never through the air, always with an idea, give a pass already with an idea, think already about the next step. I think that was working perfectly, and I think that is something, you can maybe learn, but you also have to, sometimes just find the right players at that time, and I think that was just the right moment.
Yes.
I think when I say in Holland, for such a small country, it's only possible once at 20 or 30 years. We had the good period in the 70s with Cruyff, Neeskens, Jacques Swart, and John Rapp and everybody. Then we had the 90s. We had a good period. So hopefully in the next few years we can say that again.
Do you think, Marc, Ajax will ever be able to produce another youth team capable of staying together and winning the Champions League? And how does the current financial power of some European clubs impact your ability to develop young players?
No, that's a big difference. I think in the last 5-10 years, also what you mean financially, we can't compete with the second league in England. So that's a big gap what's going on. But I still believe that we can get to a level in Europe, and Champions League is not easy, but we have to find and manage that we can get a team who is able to get 1 year to a kind of level, that we can reach it. That's our aim, our target. We can't stay there, but we want to reach it. To get to the semi-final or to the final of the Europa League. That's still possible. When we won the Champions League in '95, our average age of the team was 22.8. That's exceptional low, because we only had Rijkaard and Danny Blind. Now, if you look at every Europe team, the average age is at least 25.5, at least, or more. So that's in that game we are playing.
Ronald, the Aspire Academy now has a number of players in Europe, like Akram Afif in La Liga, playing with Sporting Gijón. How important do you think the Academy will be in developing the Qatar team for 2022?
I think it's crucial. If you want to develop your players, you need players to play on the highest level, but also competing with better players. If you play against boys who are not that good, you never will be tested, and you always have to be tested. And I think that's, for example, the problem now in Holland, what we face. We have a league, a fine league, but it's not the highest level anymore. And if you want to compete, if you want to be the best, like your Dutch team, you need players who play on the highest level. And I think, for example, why we're not that great anymore, because we have now too many players from Feyenoord, PSV and Ajax in the national team. It's great, but if you want to really compete, you need players to be in the biggest teams like Manchester United, etc. And they can make a difference. Look to Belgium. Belgium is now number 2 in the world, I think. And if you now see the starting 11, I think all play in the biggest league. Not one plays in Belgium. I think, and we have now the problem that I think 60% from the selected players are now from Holland. And that's the problem. And that's the same with, coming back to your question, you need players to put out there to compete. They will see, oh, I'm not ready yet. I have to fight to get this level. And then you will increase, and of course they will fall sometimes, and someone won't make it. That's also possible, but that's just the normal selection. Only the strongest will stand, and that's, I think, the way it should be.
Ronald, you've played for Ajax and Barcelona, 2 of the world's best clubs for youth development. How do they compare in developing young players?
Very similar, because it always starts with your head and your feet. It's never strength. It's never physical. It's always with the feet and with your mind. That's the first thing that they look at. And your intelligence on the ball. Do you play with an idea? I think that's the crucial thing what we see here, a crucial thing in those academies. I was also, for example, in Glasgow Rangers, and if you see that, for example, the difference, there is the difference that they want to win games. Yeah, I can win also games. For example, with the 12-year-old boys, I put one strong, fast one in the front, one strong, fast one in the back, and you keep it together. You give one long ball, he will be faster than the other one, and you win the games. But that's not the way you develop, because that boy who's really fast will never learn it to play football, because he only uses his strength and his speed. So when he comes to when he gets older, he never learned to really play football, and then you see suddenly he drops the level that he's supposed to have, and he will never make it really to the first team. And with Barcelona and Ajax, we always look the potential that they have. Of course, we look to see if they are maybe in a certain age. Oh, we have to develop them a little bit more in the physical way, or his running could be better. You try to focus on that also, but the first focus is always the football. Your mind, how a quick thinker you are. Look to Xavi, Iniesta, Messi. I know Xavi also was almost never. I never saw him in the gym.
Still not.
Still not. I mean, so.
Ronaldo is always at the gym.
Yeah, but that's like if we compare those two together, one is natural, the other one is you can
fake?
Not fake, because he has a really quality, but he makes from his body, he makes like a lethal tool, and that's something what is also important. You can have a great career if you are exceptional in a few things. Now, Messi and Xavi, Iniesta, they're exceptional in quick thinking on the ball. Ronaldo, of course, he has an extra thing that he's so fast and physical, scoring ability. So it's different, and so both are great players. But if we look, for example, about the academies of Ajax and Barcelona, we look first to those players who are quick thinkers.
Mark, some criticize Louis van Gaal's reign at Barcelona and the Dutch influence at the club. What do you remember of it, and what do you remember about Louis van Gaal as a manager?
I think Ronald said in the first questions, he was very important for us because he was a coach who gave the young players opportunity. He was not afraid. And that's also what my first question. You should not be afraid when you're a manager to put the young players in. But you need your support from the board, from the fans. Because if you lose 3 times, you have a problem. And if all people have the same direction in mindful thinking and which direction you want to go as a club, then it got a chance of succeed. But Louis van Gaal is, I think, also for the players like I think Xavi was. You played first, with Louis. He was not afraid when Louis saw what the other legend, Andres Iniesta. He came straight into the team. I think when. Yeah, it's a nickname of. If Andres was playing for Ajax, he was 18 years and he already was be in the first team. I'm quite sure. So I think it was good that Louis was a period at Barcelona. Maybe we had too many Dutch players, but that's a different question.
I guess a significant part of your career is associated with Louis van Gaal. He brought you back to Ajax from Twente and Shede, and then took you with him to Barcelona, and also you played with him with the national team. To what extent do you owe your success to Louis van Gaal, and what do you think of him, or at his time at Manchester United?
No, they call him also my second dad. He was very influential in my career. I was in the second team. He was my manager at the time at Ajax, and I remember very well at that time. He was not famous yet, and I was in the kit room, and I was doing my shoes, and he was doing his shoes, preparing for training. And he said to me, "Ronald, you're going to be a good football player. You're going to be a top football player." Yeah, what do you say then? You know, Louis van Gaal is like into your face, and I said, "Of course, coach." And he said, "I'm gonna be a top manager. I tell you that." And he was so convinced of his quality, and yeah, I always had that respect because he was honest and straight, and I think he believed in me because when he took over as a manager for the first team. He took me after only a few months that he took over. I was in Enschede playing really well in Twente, and he took me as a number 9. And I must say, That was, of course, unexpected because I would think I would never return to Ajax because I left, and normally you don't go back. And I was very happy because he knew my qualities, and from there on, my career really took a high. And I must say also that people think he never listens, but that's not true. He still listens to your opinion. For example, I will give you an example. In '94, in the World Cup in America, I was the number 9 of the Dutch team. And we lost against Belgium, and I was sacrificed as a striker. Bergkamp played as a number 9, and we played a little bit more defensive. So I was on the bench, and I had to play like on training with the opponent. So the training 11 against 11. So we played, for example, the next game against Ireland. So we had to pretend we had the guys on the bench to play Ireland. I could play a little bit everywhere. So Dick Advocaat put me as a right midfielder, and we had, because some players can only be strikers, so we had John Bosman as a striker because he's tall, and so. And for me, a whole new world opened up, and I thought, this is my spot. I'm going to play like this. This is not anymore the way I want to play, like a number 9. Always 2 big defenders in my neck, strong, and I'm also not that quick. So midfield is the best thing. So I went to Louis van Gaal and I said, Coach, you have to put me as a right midfielder. He says, you right midfielder? He says, you're going to run back with your opponent? And I said, believe me, trust me, put me there. And he did. And from there on, I think my career really took a high as a right midfielder. So he's also open for advice, and because everybody thinks he's very stubborn, he is, but he still listens to a lot of the players, and he knows that in the dressing room, he was always the guy who has the word, but he also asked everybody his opinion, and that was every week in, out, he did it the same, and at the end, you get in the whole season, everybody start talking more and more, have more guts to talk. And for me, he was an incredible manager, and of course his time in Manchester was not the best. Another way, talking about young boys, I just talked to Villas Boas. For example, if you see now Rashford and Lingard or whatever, if Van Gaal wasn't there, probably those boys wouldn't play now anymore, or would be on the bench. Now suddenly everybody knows them. Okay, the results didn't came his way, but now we see the likes of Rashford and some other guys, because he gave them a chance. And that is also something what is, I think, great for football, that you have managers like Van Gaal who's not afraid to put young boys on the big stage.
Yes. Marc, you played under another great manager in English football, Arsène Wenger. Do you have anything to say about his 20th anniversary at Arsenal? And do you think he would be a good candidate for the England job?
It's not easy to say 20 years as a manager. First of all, I think he will be an excellent choice as a manager for the English Football Federation. Yes. I think it's maybe also time for him, you know, so if he has the energy to bring it, I would say definitely yes for him.
I think he has the chance now maybe to get champion, so it's a nice way to round it up then, and go back and then go to take the English job.
Ronald, what do you think about the future of the Dutch national team? Do you think your brother would want to manage there, and how is he getting on with Inter Milan?
I think we're in a difficult moment with Dutch football. If you see the national team, I think the football in Holland is in general healthy. Only the result now with the national team is not great. But it's the same with Ajax. You can't expect to be always on the top. What we achieved with the Dutch team is incredible. Not many countries can say that what we achieved as a small country as it is. So we can be very proud, and we have to be patient. And of course, when you have a third place, second place in the last 2 World Cups, everybody expects that you do well again, but that's not that easy. And I remember in the mid-'80s we had another great Dutch team, and then suddenly it comes again. I think it comes and it goes. I know we have unbelievable talent in Holland, But it's very young, and we have to be patient. And I tell you this: in 22, I think there will be a strong Dutch team, and hopefully we can show that to the world.
Back to on the track.
Yeah.
Yes. Now we conclude with short questions, and I want very short answers from both of you. Which is the best generation you played with in the Dutch team?
95.
98.
Yeah, our Dutch team. Yeah, the Dutch team is 98, losing against Brazil in the semi-final.
What is the most important title you won?
The Champions League, I think, for a team player is the highest achievement. As a club player, winning the Champions League.
Mark?
Yeah, that's easy. Same.
What is the biggest title you lost and when?
I think the following year, in '96, when you look back against Juve, losing with penalties, we didn't play well, but even then we managed to get it to penalties, and we lost. And then you think back at the moment, you accept it, but if you think later in those years, you think, what an opportunity we've missed to have 2 times in a row the Champions League, because nobody did it yet. So it would be quite an achievement. And so for me, that's still a difficult moment.
Mark?
And the next year we reached the semi-final, eh? Yeah. So it's 3 years. No, not to reach the final, 98. Yes.
Who is the best coach you have ever worked with?
No, that's a question. What Puji and Xavier also had. That's you learn from so many coaches different things. We never expect Rijkaard to be a coach. Huh? When Rijkaard was a player, we thought, nah, he never will be a coach.
Only jokes.
But he was an excellent coach. As a player, he was lazy, but as a coach, he was
very serious.
Very serious, fighting, and he would have to give short answers. Eh?
He didn't even allow us to have a drink at night.
So Louis van Gaal.
Yeah, it's Louis van Gaal, without doubt.
Do you think that this generation is capable of putting the Netherlands back on the top again? No.
In 22 in Qatar, yes. This generation, not now. It's
difficult.
It's very difficult. It's how do you call that? Slowly getting there, but it takes time.
Mark?
No, I believe in the circle. It's an epoca, they say in Barcelona, an epoca. When I signed in 2000, I thought it's the best club in the world and the best team in the world. But in my time, and also you, the club was in a very negative spiral down.
Period.
So, very bad period. So after 4 or 5 years, the club came up and they won everything for 4 years. And after that, Madrid comes. So it's a circle. So that's...
Who of the current best players in the world would you expect to become also a successful coach or manager?
Ooh.
Dutch? Oh.
In the world.
Oh, no, that's very difficult. I mean, I think Philip Cocu with PSV Eindhoven, he's doing really well. I believe in him. I think he's going to be a great manager. And my brother already showed it, but
to show it now.
Yeah, to show it now a little bit. But it's difficult to say. I think what Mark said with Frank Rijkaard, nobody expected, and he was an incredible manager. It's difficult to point now to somebody. Oh, he has it in him, because sometimes the guy doesn't want to be a manager, so it's hard to tell.
What about Xavi?
I don't know. I never saw him coaching, because football he was a good football player, or a decent football player.
Still, eh? Still.
But
still.
It's of course it's not only talking, and he knows it also because he does the managing course now. it's not only putting 11 names on the board sheet anymore. It's so much more. You have 25, always say, or 35 assholes who wants to play always. They have always an opinion. It's very difficult to keep everybody together. So it's a hard job. But I believe him because he's very humble and he.
Short answers, eh?
Do you imagine Xavi as the coach of Barcelona, Piqué the president, and Puyol the football manager? This combination?
I believe so, yeah. Because I know them quite well. I know them as a football player, and I know them sometimes when we are like events like this. They're humble guys. They're intelligent. They're not, as we say, big noses. They listen to other people. So I believe in them. So it's for sure possible.
Mark, what do you think? Who among the current players in the world who expect to become also like a successful coach or manager?
Yeah, you never can say. If I look at the generation, I believe also Philippe Cocu is doing well. It's also good to see when you start as a coach, because 3 years ago everybody in Holland said, "Oh, it's terrible, he can't do it," and whatever.
Broncos the same.
The same. You need to get the time to learn everything and to give you to manage everything. He's doing exactly well. He's a very intelligent player and a very intelligent coach. I can't say someone who will be a new coach where I played with. I was also quite sure I didn't want to be a coach. So everybody has to find his way in football.
Who will win the Ballon d'Or this year?
For me, I start now, because not always the same names. Maybe now it's time to get maybe another player who is very important, but it's not maybe like from Bayern Munich, Müller?
Thomas Müller.
Thomas Müller. I think he's exceptional for 5, 6, 7 years, but he's never in the top. I think in the top 3 or whatever. Never. I don't know. So maybe get your mind a little bit outside sometimes.
Ronald.
Yeah, if Messi is on his A game, for me he can still. For me, he gets the Ballon d'Or because for me, what Xavi Puyol said, for me is the best ever player lived. He makes every time the difference. We talked about tiki-taki. And you can do as much tiki-taki, but at the end, the ball comes to Messi, and he makes the difference. So that is the guy who makes people laugh and cheer. And for me, he's the best. But of course, he has to show it every year again. And what he did already is incredible. But if he does it this year again, for me, he gets the golden ball.
Thank you so much, Ronald de Boer, and thank you so much, Marc Overmars. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bora.